Alright, welcome to T1023. You will be required to have all of your gear on all the time in this room. Technically speaking, there is a yellow square here by the door where you are allowed to come in and get your gear on. Don't. I would prefer if you got all your gear on outside of the room and come in. That way, this tiny little space right here is not occupied by 12 or so of you trying to all get your hard hats dug out of your bag. Wear your gear into the room, please. You can get it on outside. And during this COVID season, there's nobody here to impress. Just wear all your gear right into class, right from your car. Now, as we're going through this room, you will notice that the big desks are marked, "Do not use this space." That is guiding students to not double up on the desks. You will be, however, allowed to, for this semester, while COVID is on, bring in your coats and your bags, but they must stay on this part of the desk. Working part of the desk, your storage part of the desk. Simply because the communal lockers that we would typically be using, well, communal is not necessarily the safest thing for us at this time. When you come in the room here, there is hand sanitizer right there, and there is also a sink here. Please, on your way in, wash and sanitize coming in. You may also come over here, and on this post, there are sanitizing wipes. Now, the first wipe is probably going to be fairly dry, simply because nobody's been in here. Get the first wipe out of there if it's dry. Use your second wipe. There are 2 containers here. You may pre-wipe your station, but you must post-wipe your station. Please sanitize everything that you have touched while you are in here. That includes your workstation and your workbench. When you are done, I expect to see the benches put back on the desk. That shows us that you have sanitized and cleaned up after yourself. One of the joys of COVID season is we are trying to limit the contact that we're having with each other. So you're going to notice in this room that we have a stairwell on this end and a stairwell on this end to go upstairs. Please, we're going to play NASCAR this year. You're going to go up this staircase, make a left, come down that staircase and make a left. There's also alleyways back here for our cubicles for the second 2/3 of the semester. We are always making left turns, all right? It's NASCAR. It's simple to follow while you're drunk. You're going to come in here and you're going to make a left turn down the alley, and you're going to come out at the other end making another left turn. Please make sure you follow these protocols. Now, while we are working within this room, upstairs here are where our project boards are going to be kept. Our project boards are kept in these cages. In these cages, you will find that there are racks marked for individual teachers, for individual course codes, for individual days. Please make sure to grab your rack for your class if you are pulling it out. On those racks, there will also be your name. Do not grab somebody else's board, please. Alright, so we've come into T1023, we've sanitized our workstation, and we're getting ready to work. You're going to come over here to the back room, T1023-3, and in this back room, you're going to notice that there is 2 sides. We have plumbing side and we have the electrical side. This will always be opened by your professor, and you are going to have a whole raft of red bins. Somewhere on these red bins, you will find painter's tape which will have your name on it. They will be labeled for you. Again, do not grab anything that has somebody else's name on it. It should have all the parts that you need for this semester within it. If it doesn't have the parts that you need, out here we have our extra cabinets. Anything that comes out of these cabinets for your use needs to go back in your bin. Do not put it back in the cabinets. Once it's come out of the cabinets, stays out of the cabinets. Alright, so now that we've gotten our lab documents handed in and we're ready to start wiring for project board 1, you can grab one of these from the racks upstairs where I showed you earlier. It should come with no wire in it other than a cord end tied into the bottom octagon box, and your teacher should have a piece of painter's tape which will be applied to the top, which will get your first and last name as well as your section number, please. Now, while we are wiring this, you will notice on your drawings that prints boards 1 through 6 are a compounding type thing where they will add to themselves. Now, standard rules kind of apply for this. So to go over those, we need to get a bit of wire. Now, when it goes into your wire measurement, I know I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but when it goes into wire lengths for this, please measure and cut close to what you need. We don't need you wasting a pile of wire. Please get approximately what you need. Don't be this guy. One of the other things that you will notice is all of the wire racks are labeled. We have a post-secondary wire rack, and we also have an apprenticeship wire rack. We have 2 steel auxiliary wire racks at this time. We do have a brand new big fancy wire reel machine like they have at Home Depot, but it has not yet been fully approved by Fanshawe. It only went in a couple of weeks ago. So hopefully sometime this semester we'll actually get to use this really cool big machine, but they got to build guards and stuff because, you know, you can actually reach in and touch the chains from the top. Safety. Okay, so now that you've got wire and you know what you need in here, you've done your wiring diagrams, you've handed them in, they've been approved, and you've been okay to get this started here. What we want to do is we want to have a couple of things that we make sure that we adhere to. We learned this last semester. You need a minimum of 6 inches. By Canadian code, minimum of 150 millimeters of free conductor from where it enters the box, regardless if it's going to a terminal in the back of the box, whether it's going to a Moret connection, or whether it's going to a device like a switch or a receptacle or a light. Minimum of 150 millimeters of free conductor. Now, if that conductor is going straight through this box, no connection within it, it can legally go straight through just like this. However, if you ever have to do anything later, you can't simply cut that and work with those 2-inch tails. There's not enough there to work with. So instead of doing that, let's say for project board 1, where it shows that you have a switch going in this top switch box. We have our minimum. Again, it's a minimum. We don't like to see any more than 9 inches, but you cannot legally have less than 6. No more than 6. Now, since it needs to tie to power here, again, minimum 6, we could cut it at that length. But if we ever need to pick up power anywhere else through these boxes, we've kind of euchred ourselves on that. So what we would prefer to see you do, it's a little bit more wire, but it will allow you a bit easier work in the lab coming up. If we leave a minimum of a 6-inch loop here and a minimum of a 6-inch loop here, we could then cut this here, and this would allow us to have extra for the next couple of labs. If we ever needed to cut into this, we have enough conductor left over where we are then able to use it and have the legal amount of conductor left over. Instead of having to cut it, if we ever had to cut it here, we'd have to pull this all the way back in and pull a new piece of wire through. It will just help save a little bit of work down the road if you leave yourself your 6-inch loops in this box here. Now, one of the things you do need to be careful with when you are working with pipe on short runs like this is every now and then with your 6 inches up top there, you will notice that it has a tendency of wandering on you. When you put your switch together and you go to shove this in, sometimes it will wander through this conduit and get shorter. And when we go to test it and you only have 4 inches there, that's going to be deducted marks. Make sure you've got your 6 here and your 6 here. Don't let it wander through the conduits on you. Alright, so some real quick refresh from last semester, just in case we forgot. I've got a single conductor pulled through here. I'm just going to do a single termination just to remind you. So remember, green screws get your green or your bare conductor all the time. Silver screws always get the white identified conductor, your identified or your neutral. And your brass always gets your ungrounded or your hot conductors, the ones that would be shocking to you if you touched. You know, the ones that you shouldn't lick. Now, all devices do have what is known as a strip gauge on this one. So you can see right there, it does say strip gauge. And if I were to strip the conductor, as long as it says right there, then that would be a perfect termination for you. So I can simply hold that up there. I am going to strip that, making sure to use the right size notch on my wire strippers, and that should be the perfect amount to strip that. Now, when you are terminating conductors, you're going to put a loop in it. That loop needs to be so that when you install this on your cable, I'm sorry, the camera's settled down, that when you install that on your device, that conductor goes minimum 3/4 of the way around, and it goes clockwise. That way, as I'm tightening that screw down, it's actually wanting to bind and pull that tail in. You cannot put it on clockwise, or sorry, counterclockwise. It must go on clockwise. All right, so when I install this, it's going on clockwise. Couple of things to note. I want to make sure that my insulation is not coming past the back of the device. Personally, most people prefer it to end somewhere between the brass and the back of the device. Some people will say no more than an 1/8 inch of copper showing if they need to quantify it. You also need to be careful that you don't have insulation under the screw. That way the screw is getting tight on the insulation dimension, not on the copper dimension. So we are going to make sure that this is down and nice and snug under that connection point. Minimum 3/4 of the way around, going clockwise, no insulation under the screw, as well as no extra exposed copper any more than we need. Alright, one of the last things we need to do before we finish the lab, or when we are done working, is we are going to clean our space up, and we are also going to wipe the bench that we sat on, and we are going to clean it up as well as put it up on top. Now, you also notice that there's brooms. I know, electricians and brooms, love-hate relationship, but we do need to clean our workspaces. We do need to sweep our floor. All those little wire strippings, they all need to be put in the garbage. The garbage is always going to be back here by the sink, or there may be another one up by the scrap bins, but please make sure that your garbage goes in the garbage. We're also going to make sure that we return our boards back to the cabinets upstairs. Awesome. I've cleaned up after myself and I've put my stuff away. So in T1023, we try and recycle as much as we possibly can. We have, by this big overhead door out back, we have scrap steel and scrap ABS or PVC bins. They are marked, and they're not marked just in one place, but they are marked in 2 places. We also, over by our cabinets here for our extras, we have scrap bins. Now, they are also marked. Single conductor, insulated, bare copper. We have rigid aluminum. Rigid aluminum, that is the threaded. Sorry for anybody using headphones there. Probably pretty loud. And we have empty BX casings. Flexible aluminum conduit only. No wire. So, and shouldn't be any garbage in here either. Let's do our best to sort this out to help Fanshawe recoup some of the costs. It is not a cheap course to operate as far as consumables go. No NMD, but you can strip your NMD and separate it out. No BX, but you can strip it and separate it out. Please make sure that you are helping us keep this lab as clean and as tidy as possible.